Have you ever felt like God is testing you? Maybe you're facing a season of waiting, a difficult challenge, or a situation that doesn't make sense. What if I told you that these tests aren't random? They're part of God's plan to prepare you for something greater.
The Bible is filled with stories of people who were tested before God used them in powerful ways. So, what are these tests, and how can you navigate them with faith and confidence? Let's uncover the first 3 tests God uses to shape you for His purpose. The idea that God tests His people might sound intimidating, but it's actually a sign of His love and care. In Deuteronomy 8:2, Moses tells the Israelites, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep His commands." God's tests are not about punishment. They're about preparation. They reveal what's in our hearts and refine us for His purposes. The test of waiting. One of the most common tests God uses is waiting. In Psalm 27:14, David writes, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord." Waiting teaches us patience, trust, and dependence on God. It's in the waiting that we learn to surrender our timelines and trust His perfect plan, the test of obedience. Another test is obedience, especially when God's instructions don't make sense. In Genesis 22, God tests Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham obeys, demonstrating his unwavering faith. This test shows us that obedience, even when it's difficult, is the key to unlocking God's promises. But here's the thing, God's tests aren't just about what we do, they're about who we become. In James 1:2-4, we're told, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." So, how do we grow through these tests? Let's explore the next test, the test of faith. Faith is tested when we're asked to believe God's promises, even when circumstances seem impossible. In Hebrews 11:1, faith is defined as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This test pushes us to trust God's character and His word, even when we can't see the outcome. These first 3 tests, waiting, obedience, and faith, are just the beginning. They reveal our hearts, refine our character, and prepare us for God's purpose. But there are more tests God uses to shape us. So, what are they? And how can we pass them with confidence? The next part of this journey will reveal the remaining tests and how they can transform your life. What if the challenges you're facing right now are actually opportunities for growth? What if the tests God allows in your life are designed to refine you, strengthen you, and prepare you for His purpose? In part 1, we explored the tests of waiting, obedience, and faith. Now let's dive into the next 3 tests that God uses to shape us into the people He's called us to be. So what are these tests, and how can you navigate them with grace and perseverance? Let's uncover the transformative power of God's refining process. God's tests are not random or arbitrary. They are intentional and purposeful. They are designed to reveal our weaknesses, strengthen our faith, and prepare us for the plans He has for us. Let's explore the next 3 tests. The test of suffering. Suffering is one of the most difficult tests, but it's also one of the most transformative. In 1 Peter 4:12-13, Peter writes, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when His glory is revealed." Suffering teaches us to rely on God's strength, not our own. It deepens our compassion for others and draws us closer to Christ. The test of temptation. Temptation is another test God allows to refine our character. In James 1:12, we're told, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him." Temptation reveals our weaknesses and teaches us to rely on God's power to resist sin. It's an opportunity to grow in holiness and integrity. But here's the thing. God's tests aren't just about enduring hardship. They're about growing in character. In Romans 5:3-4, Paul writes, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope." So, how do we grow through these tests? Let's explore the next test, the test of humility. Humility is a key quality God develops in us through testing. In James 4:6, we're told, "God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble." Humility teaches us to depend on God rather than our own abilities. It's often developed through situations where we feel weak, inadequate, or out of control. These tests, suffering, temptation, and humility, are not easy, but they are essential for our growth. They refine our character, deepen our faith, and prepare us for the plans God has for us. But there's one more test that ties everything together. So, what is it, and how can it help us fulfill God's purpose? The final part of this journey will reveal the ultimate test and how it empowers us to live boldly for Christ. What if the ultimate test God uses to prepare you isn't about what you face, but about how you respond? What if the way you handle challenges, setbacks, and even failures determines how God can use you? The ultimate test God uses to prepare us is the test of surrender. This test is about letting go of our plans, our desires, and our control, and fully trusting God with our lives. It's the culmination of all the other tests, because it requires us to rely completely on God's wisdom, timing, and power. In Luke 9:23, Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Surrender is not a one-time event. It's a daily choice to die to ourselves and live for Christ. It's about saying, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. But here's the thing. Surrender isn't just about giving up. It's about gaining everything. In Matthew 16:25, Jesus says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." When we surrender to God, we find true freedom, purpose, and joy. So how do we live a life of surrender? Let's explore the keys to passing this ultimate test. Trust God's plan. Surrender begins with trusting that God's plan is better than ours. In Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Even when we don't understand, we can trust that God is working all things for our good. Romans 8:28. Let go of control. Surrender means releasing our need to control every outcome. In Proverbs 3:5-6, we're told, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." When we let go, we make room for God to work in ways we could never imagine. Embrace God's timing. Surrender requires patience and trust in God's timing. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, we're reminded, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Even when we're eager to move forward, we must wait for God's perfect timing. The ultimate test of surrender is not just about giving up. It's about stepping into the fullness of God's purpose for your life. When you surrender to Him, you become a vessel of His love, grace, and power. So, are you ready to take the next step in your journey with Him? The adventure starts now. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.